Commission to conduct this hearing in the application of the New Mexico Oil Conservation Division to adopt rules related to the venting or flaring of methane emissions. The matter was docketed as case number 21528. The hearing will be conducted pursuant to the Commission's rulemaking regulation 19.15.3 of the New Mexico Administrative Code, as well as the Open Meetings Act, the State Rules Act, and procedural orders entered in this matter by the chair of the Commission and this hearing officer. These orders, along with all documents in the rulemaking record, can be found on the webpage of the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department, EMNRD, specifically at the Oil Conservation Division Outreach and Public Engagement webpage. If you find yourself on the OCD imaging file, look for case 21528. This hearing is being recorded electronically and transcribed by Paul Baca Court Reporters. A copy of the transcript will be posted online when it is completed. The petitioner in this matter is the Oil Conservation Division. Other parties from which timely pre-hearing statements have been received include the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association, here referred to as NMOGA, the State Land Office and Commissioner of Public Lands, a collection of nonprofits, environmental nonprofits, referred to collectively as the Climate Advocates. This includes the Center for Civic Policy, Conservation Voters of New Mexico, DNA Care, Earthworks, Natural Resources Defense Council, San Juan Citizens Alliance, the Sierra Club, and 350 New Mexico. And then the Environmental Defense Fund, another party in this matter. The petitioner and the other parties will begin presenting their cases tomorrow. We'll be starting with opening statements at 1 p.m. The time between today and tomorrow at 1 p.m. have been reserved for public comment. There are two ways to offer public comment on the proposed rule before the Commission. You may employ either or both. One is to offer verbal comment, as many of you are here to do today. Anyone may do that by signing up for an opportunity in one of the many time slots available between today and January 15th. To sign up, as you know, you email Florine Davidson, who will schedule you in your preferred time slot so long as it is available. Please collect your thoughts before you comment, as comment may only be offered once during this hearing. Know also that if you comment verbally, one of the parties or the commissioners may have questions for you at the end of your comment. In the event you have more to say or would prefer not to speak, you may submit your comment in writing. These submissions also go to Florine Davidson. Florine is at occ.hearings@state.nm.us. You will also find her contact information on the OCD Outreach webpage. Just to be clear, no public comment will be accepted through the WebEx chat function. That chat function is limited in this hearing to exploring potential technological issues you may have with the OCD staff who are serving as the WebEx hosts each day. Today our host is Balin Lamkin. Other staff on the line include Florine Davidson, who supports the Commission. If you or a friend have an issue logging in, please contact Ann Kaloy at 508-527-3742. In the event this hearing is interrupted by an internet outage, for example, or by mischief, please try to sign back in. If that doesn't work, check your email or the OCD Outreach webpage for further instructions. Know that if the host has heard an attempt to disrupt this hearing or to use vile language, that person will be expelled, and that expulsion will likely occur without any warning from the hearing officer. So before we begin with the first set of commenters, let me ask if the commissioners would like to identify themselves. Madam Chair?
I'm Adrienne Sandoval. I am the chair of the Oil Conservation Commission and the director of the Oil Conservation Division.
Mr. Engler?
Thank you, Tom Engler. I designate from the secretary on the commission.
Commissioner Kessler?
Good morning. My name is Jordan Kessler. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Mineral Resources for the State Land Office and the designee of Land Commissioner Stephanie Garcia-Richard.
Thank you. And although the technical parties may not all be on at this moment, if there are any counsel who would like to offer their appearances, this would be the time, and I'd like to go in the order that we've established by agreement. Is Mr. Ames with us? No. Mr. Feldower?
Yes, Madam Examiner, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Michael Felderworth with the Santa Fe Office of Holland and Hart, appearing on behalf of the New Mexico Oil and Gas Association. I am likely to join my colleagues and drop off of this call shortly.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, is Mr. Biernoff available? I know some of the council will be joining and stepping away throughout today. Anyone from the Climate Advocates or Environmental Defense Fund? No. All right. And we also have Chris Moander on the line. Mr. Moander is Commission Counsel.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. So let's turn to the public commenters for this time slot. Please, when I call your name, identify yourself, your affiliation, if any, and know that I will ask you to wrap up as we get to 2 minutes. The first 3 commenters are Celera Hughes, Patricio Largoita, and Nicholas King. Ms. Hughes, are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'd like to thank you first for the opportunity of speaking today, speaking on behalf of the over 18,000 Moms Clean Air Force members here in New Mexico. My name is Celera Hughes, and I've been with Moms Clean Air Force for 4 years, but I was born in Corrales, and when I decided to have a family, New Mexico was the place I wanted to raise my children. But today I'm deeply concerned that the home that my 8-year-old daughter is growing up in is very different due to the public health and climate impacts we're experiencing. These impacts will only be made worse if we do not answer Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's call for nation-leading methane reduction rules. To achieve that goal, the Oil Conservation Commission must strengthen the OCD proposed methane waste rules to eliminate unnecessary waste and pollution. We'd like the final rule to achieve 3 goals. 1, ban routine venting and flaring and only allow such activities when necessary for health and safety, and require flaring over venting except when necessary. 2, require oil and gas companies to capture 98% of methane by 2026. 3, strengthen state reporting and public notice requirements to improve transparency and ensure accountability for oil and gas operations. These methane rules are needed because we have a serious methane waste and pollution problem. venting and flaring are degrading our air quality and worsening the climate crisis, which will have lasting effect for generations to come. Recent scientific analysis by the Environmental Defense Fund found that New Mexico's oil and gas companies emit at least 1 million metric tons of climate warming methane a year. It's 5 times higher than has been previously reported to the EPA. As we are facing a climate crisis, what we do to rein in greenhouse gases like methane in the next 10 years will have an enormous impact on generations to come. In conclusion, I encourage all the state agencies to work together on comprehensive and meaningful rules to protect all New Mexicans. Since nearly 70% of oil and gas methane pollution in New Mexico occurs through leaks, it's critical that the New Mexico Environment Department adopt a rule that holds polluters accountable and cuts emissions across the oil and gas supply chain. NMED's current draft rule fails to protect public health and our climate by exempting 95% of wells from regulation. The world scientists have warned us that we have until 2030 to make meaningful reductions. The Commission should make clear that the agencies must work in parallel to achieve comprehensive rules that cut methane and air pollution and protect the health of our children from methane pollution and climate change. Our children are counting on this. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Mr. Larragoite. Mr. Larragoite, are you with us?
I don't, yeah, let me unmute the call-in users real quick.
I can hear you.
That's me, Agnes Balin. Are any of the call-in users Patricio? It doesn't look like it.
All right. When this sort of thing happens, I would be happy to accept that comment at a later time, but we will continue moving through the list until Mr. Larragoite or any other commenter joins us and identifies himself. Let's move then to Nicholas King. Following Mr. King will be Steve Gross and Emily Wolf. Mr. King.
Yes, thank you. I'm Nick King with the Carlsbad Mennonite Church and the Citizens Caring for the Future here. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your good work in this, working day and night and weekends, as I have experienced with Flooring and answering an email last night. We certainly affirm the direction that you're going. The governor's taking us to protect all of us now and in the future. Now, we all dislike more regulations. Sometimes they're very necessary, like in nursing homes, constructions. But this is an existential threat to our future, to the climate, when we see 100-degree temperatures north of the Arctic Circle and the exceptional drought here in New Mexico. We realize that regulation may adversely affect our economy, that affects all of us. But I am willing to deal with that repercussion, make that sacrifice for the good of all and for the future. I also appreciate the oil companies' verbal commitments to cleaning up and being more green. But as we see through the eyes of the FLIR camera, not much has changed in the last several years in spite of what is being said. That there's still a lot of methane VOCs being emitted. And we realize that the skeleton crew that you're all working with and the limitations is like having one cop for the whole state to regulate that. But we hope that even with self-reporting, that can be improved. Hopefully through random inspections with FLIR cameras, that can be checked out. As Dave Rogers says, there needs to be reasonable and responsible regulation with ethical and effective enforcement. We don't want more paperwork for anybody, but random inspections with FLIR cameras followed up by enforcement are important. And certainly there should not be any more drilling permits being given out if the people are not in compliance with what they already have. I think that sounds quite reasonable.
Mr. King, would you wrap up, please?
Yes. For God's sake and for the sake of future generations over the whole world, help us to be responsible in caring for this gift of the year. It must start with each of us, and it's going to be hard, but it is necessary. And thanks for your good work.
Thank you, Mr. King. Steve Gross, is Mr. Gross with us?
He's not in the attendees, but he might be a call-in user. They should be able to identify themselves, but
Mr. Gross, if you're a call-in user, please speak up. No? All right, we may be able to hear from Mr. Gross later. Emily Wolf. Emily Wolf.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm Emily Wolf. I'm the New Mexico Program Coordinator for the National Parks Conservation Association. Thanks for the opportunity today to speak about providing some information on how your rules can have a positive impact on national parks and other public lands in New Mexico. Strong rules to reduce methane emissions, as well as volatile organic compounds released along with methane in oil and gas industrial processes, are crucial for the state to develop and implement to reduce waste and safeguard public health, our climate and ecosystems, and the unique and fragile landscapes in and connected to our national parks, particularly in the Permian and San Juan basins. Carlsbad Caverns and Guadalupe Mountains National Parks combined generated over $53 million in local economic output and supported 655 jobs in 2017, but unrestrained industrial development can have a negative impact on the stable and sustainable economy. At Carlsbad from 1993 to 2016, visitation decreased more than 30%, and a 2018 study showed that park visitation drops 8% or more when pollution is high. Without strong rules, there will be a gut punch to local economies that depend on those visitors. We commend the OCD for proposing strong rules, and we support OCD's proposed ban on routine flaring, the preference for flaring over venting when necessary, and the 98% capture requirement. However, the rules should be strengthened, and the Commission should do all it can to minimize methane waste, including requiring green completions to minimize methane emissions during completions and recompletions, incentivizing compliance by prohibiting new drilling and denying permits for new wells if operators are out of compliance with their gas capture requirements, requiring operators to immediately notify persons and communities at risk from methane venting, and requiring that any leaks or repairs through the alarm program are verified by an independent third party to ensure the integrity of the program. Air quality resource values, or AQRVs, are parks identify lists of values they're worried about being impacted by pollution, including dark skies and ecosystems. A strong methane rule will safeguard these values. Combined, more than 4,000 after-dark visitor contacts are recorded annually at Chaco, Guadalupe, and Carlsbad. Sky glow adversely impacts nighttime scenic quality, visual resources, and wildlife, including bats and the insects on which they feed. National parks are becoming more important sanctuaries for plants and animals, as well as fostering wildlife corridors, healthy watersheds, and community-scale protections. It's vital to defend public lands and parks by minimizing the emission of methane on a state level. Thank you again for the opportunity to address the Commission.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wolf. Our next several commenters are Douglas Micklejohn, Penny Alcoin, Camila Biebelman, Amy Mackey. Mr. Micklejohn?
Good morning. Can you hear me, Madam Hearing Officer?
Yes, I can very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the Commission, Madam Hearing Officer. I'm Douglas Micklejohn. I'm an attorney with the New Mexico Environmental Law Center. The Law Center is a nonprofit environmental law firm that provides legal services to local communities. We're grateful for the opportunity to provide our comments on the proposed regulations limiting methane emissions from oil and gas facilities. First of all, methane emissions from oil and gas production are the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in New Mexico. Methane from oil and gas production also is emitted with several co-pollutants, including oxides of nitrogen and volatile organic compounds, which are harmful to human health. The adverse effects of these emissions are likely to affect disadvantaged communities disproportionately. For example, due to their proximity, communities in the Laguna Pueblo, the Acoma Pueblo, and the Navajo Nation are likely to be disproportionately affected by air pollution from oil and gas production in the San Juan Basin. The Oil Conservation Division's proposed regulations are generally sound, but they can and should be strengthened. First, routine flaring at oil and gas wells must be prohibited. Routine flaring from oil and gas production releases a tremendous amount of methane and other pollutants into the atmosphere. It wastes natural gas that otherwise could be captured and marketed, and it forgoes royalties that would otherwise be paid to the state to support education. We support the proposed rules prohibition on routine flaring, and we oppose any efforts to weaken it. Second, we likewise support the rule's general prohibition on venting. Third, we support the 98% minimum capture requirement for methane. However, we believe the amount of time for industry to meet this requirement is far too long. The industry has known about the problem of excess methane emissions in New Mexico for many years. Yet the rule would allow almost 6 years for industry to come into compliance. We believe that...
Would you wrap up, please?
Certainly. We believe the compliance period should be no more than 3 years. Fourth, as other speakers have said, an operator who acquires additional wells should be required to meet its annual minimum capture requirement in all newly acquired wells. Fifth, if an operator is not in compliance with minimum capture requirements, the Oil Conservation Division should not approve any new permit for that operator to drill a new well. Thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak to you today. We urge you to make these rules stringent to protect New Mexico's environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Micklejohn. Penny O'Coin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Penny O'Coin. I want to thank you all for letting me speak today. I want to also thank you for everything you are doing to make our community and homes safe. I live here in Carlsbad, right in the middle of an oil field. When I came to Carlsbad, there was just a handful of old mobile homes on my street with a huge empty field across the street. Now that field is filled with oil and gas operations. Now my home feels like a war zone. We have had to deal with the noise of them drilling all day and night with no respite. We've had to deal with all the mice coming into our homes from that field while they were drilling. We've had to deal with all the trucks blocking our driveway and running us off the road. We've had to deal with gigantic flares lighting up the night and roaring so loud it left us wondering if they were going to blow up. We've had to deal with black oily stuff falling into our animals' water from those same flares. And finally, we've had to deal with a pipeline breaking and covering our land and home with toxic flowback water. I personally am so happy to see that you are making changes to help my home be a bit safer. But I feel that it is not enough. I have seen over and over again that oil and gas operators continue to harm us and our environment. Even if they are caught with leaks or spills, they continue to operate in the same unsafe manner. I feel this is because there is not enough incentive for them to make diligent efforts to operate safely. I ask you today to keep unsafe operators from having the permits to continue drilling and operating unsafely. It is up to you to protect the lives of people who are living here. These are your neighbors and friends. We need your help in making sure we are safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Coin. Camilla Feebleman. Did see Ms. Feebleman among the attendees. Ms. Feebleman?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. You're a little quiet.
Okay, and is this any better?
That's terrific. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I am Camilla Feibelman. I'm the director of the Rio Grande chapter of the Sierra Club, representing 35,000 members and supporters in New Mexico and West Texas. I will submit full written comments, but in the meantime, our state community and families are left exposed by the gutting of oil and gas, methane, waste, and pollution rules at the federal level. Strong state rules will protect us while the federal administrative process works to restore these protections and will prepare our state to comply with future federally restored rules. As for these rules at the OCC and OCD, the Oil and Gas Act prohibits waste and gives the Commission broad authority to implement this prohibition, and it should take steps to prevent all forms of waste, including practices that damage human health, the climate, and the environment. Venting and flaring of natural gas is extremely wasteful. Venting releases methane directly into the atmosphere, along with smog-causing volatile organic compounds and cancer-causing toxins like benzene. Flaring releases a different set of pollution, including nitrogen oxides, which also contribute to smog formation. The oil and gas industry is also the largest source of greenhouse gas pollution in the state, responsible for more than 50% of our greenhouse gas emissions. We applaud the division for proposing to ban routine flaring, for example, at wells due to lack of natural gas takeaway capacity. This contributes significantly to air pollution and climate change and deprives the state of much needed royalties. This practice should end immediately. The proposal to require operators to capture 98% of their gas by 2026 is an appropriate backstop. This gas capture requirement should also encourage operators to reduce waste from devices such as storage tanks and pneumatic devices and from operations such as liquids unloading. These rules demand appropriate enforcement mechanisms and should be strengthened. No one should be allowed to drill a new well unless they are in compliance with their gas capture requirements, and no one should be able to drill a new well unless they can show they have the infrastructure in place to capture all of the gas they produce. Also, we support the proposal by the climate advocates and EDF, which should ensure these green completion requirements function as EPA intended them to. And finally, we support strong performance standards for flares. We know that flares routinely malfunction in the field, leading to uncontrolled venting. Colorado has required companies to use auto igniters on flares, and New Mexico should require that as well at all wells, including stripper wells. Thank you for your work, and thank you for protecting our families and communities.
Thank you, Ms. Feibelman. Amy Mackey.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Mackey, and I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I have for the last 15 years with my family. I'm a mother of 2 teenagers, and I first of all like to thank the Oil Conservation Commission for this opportunity to comment. And all of the other conservation groups, thank you so much for your hard work. I am a level 2 licensed special education teacher and a general education teacher. I currently teach at Milagro Middle School in Santa Fe. And if you see me leave the meeting, it's only because I have to go to work. So I have a biology degree, a master's from the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. Unfortunately, nationwide, New Mexico ranks very low in education. We are at 49th. We are the 49th one. We beat out Mississippi for last place. Education is not a priority, and neither is the health of our children in this state. Some of my students couch surf. They don't have a permanent home, and their families have to make some tough choices, such as doctor bills or food. And this is long before COVID hit. They are treading water, and our education system at 49th in the rankings is also treading water. We're just getting by. And education, as we know, provides more opportunities, and an investment in our youth is an investment in the future of all of New Mexico. So I strongly agree that New Mexico cannot afford this methane waste. Each year, oil and gas companies waste 271 million worth of natural gas through venting, flaring, and leaks. It costs the state over 43 million in royalties and tax revenue. And this is money that could help increase student success, provide more job opportunities for them in the future and a better life. And this money saved could help the at-risk students. So in such an oil-rich state and gas, why are so many people so poor?
Ms. Mackey,
Mexico has no requirements for prohibiting methane waste. And it's a blatant waste of money, and it could be used to help all New Mexicans, especially our children, our future. And I believe it needs to change this year. So in 2021, it is possible to capture the methane waste, which would save money and lives through health. This is why I support Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's call for nation-leading methane rules, and it can help eliminate unnecessary and harmful methane waste. And I thank you for allowing me to comment. And thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Mackey. Our next several commenters are Robin Jackson, Jeff Thrope, Joan Brown, and Sister Marlena Parrott. Ms. Jackson?
Ms. Orth, we've had a couple people ask if you could speak up a little bit.
Oh, yes, yes. I may turn up my sound as well. Okay.
Hi.
Mr. Lampkin, actually, while I have you unmuted, should we, or do you want to call the list of call-in users to establish their identity?
I currently have them unmuted, so they should be able to identify themselves if there's a name that's not on the attendee list.
All right, thank you. So Robin Jackson.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning, Yate. My name is Robin Jackson. I am with the Navajo organization Dinek Care. We work with Navajo community members that live in the eastern agency of the Navajo Nation on checkerboard lands in New Mexico. During my visits to these communities, I have been made aware there are many Navajo residential members who are daily subjected to toxic gases from oil and gas wells. A health assessment conducted in partnership with the Counselor Chapter was released last year. It reported that of the community respondents who filled out symptom surveys, 90% said they experienced sinus problems and sore throat. 80% reported cough, headaches, itching, burning eyes, joint pain, fatigue, and sleep disturbance. 70% reported nosebleeds and wheezing. Further concerning is the growing evidence of association between proximity to well pads and negative health outcomes among young children. Recent studies have found symptoms including low birth weight and prematurity. Children spend more time outdoors, increasing their exposure to emissions. Their bodies are still maturing and they cannot metabolize or detoxify some toxicants as well as adults. Their brains are developing and many well pollutants are known to interfere with cognitive development. Children under the age of 9 years make up approximately 31% of the population in Counselor. I urge the OCC members to strengthen the OCD's proposed methane waste rules to eliminate unnecessary waste and pollution. The rule should include requiring operators to immediately notify communities when methane releases threaten public health and safety. The rule should also include denying permits to drill new wells if operators are out of compliance with gas capture requirements. Additionally, the rule should prohibit routine venting and flaring during pipeline maintenance and repairs and only allow for emergency flaring. These requirements will make a substantial difference in Navajo communities and their future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. Jeff Thrope.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. I am Jeff Thrope. I'm with Public Land Solutions, and I live in Abiquiu, New Mexico. Mexico has a methane waste and oil and gas air pollution problem, and it's causing harm to the state's unique outdoor recreation brand by ruining our air and harming our climate. Methane is a powerful climate change pollutant responsible for 25% of the warming we experience today, and New Mexico is a primary source of our nation's methane pollution. While we've worked to promote our unique cultural heritage along with our hiking, biking, fishing, skiing, rafting, and climbing, New Mexico is increasingly known as the nation's leading methane hotspot. Impacts will impair the quality of the outdoor recreation experience, cause health and safety concerns for recreationalists, and inhibit the outdoor recreation economy. The currently occurring and accelerating effects of climate change on public lands and waters and recreational opportunities they support are extensive and increasingly well documented. When our air is dirty, people won't hike in our deserts, ride bikes in our mountains, or raft, kayak, and canoe down our rivers. To keep our air clean and protect the outdoor recreation businesses that are core to the New Mexican economy, we need strong rules to reduce air and climate pollution. We urge NMED and OCD to improve their methane and air quality proposals to meet the governor's goals and protect our businesses. As we all dig out of the current economic crisis, it's more important now than ever to maintain New Mexico.
Thank you, Mr. Thrope. Joan Brown.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Good morning, Madam Hearing Officer and Commissioners, and thank you for holding the hearing and for all of your hard work. My name is Sister Joan Brown, and I'm the Director of New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light. We work with thousands of faith leaders, their communities, and peoples all across New Mexico to care for creation, the health of communities, and for climate justice. And we support very strong methane rules. Clean air, community health, and addressing a warming climate are ethical and moral imperatives rooted in the religious teachings to love neighbor and to care for our sacred creation. I've gone with people of faith to the Permian Basin and witnessed the pollution, felt the sickness some of my brothers and sisters experience on a daily basis, and walked in areas inundated with oil and gas drilling in our land of enchantment that now feel more like wasteland. And with pollution, our state feels more and more like a sacrifice zone. We must change this. Some courageous people in the Permian have talked with me about their concerns, including flaring not done properly, operators who do not notify communities when methane releases threaten them and the environment, suffering from routine venting and flaring during maintenance and repairs, and operators who are out of compliance and continue to operate. These concerns must be addressed for the OCC rules to be strong enough. More than 75% of the children under 5 years old in New Mexico's largest oil-producing counties live within a mile of an active well site. People of faith are called to protect the most vulnerable and our children and our climate and the future, and the OCC rules must do that. For the rules, we believe that they need 3 things have to happen: ban routine venting and flaring, and only allow those when they are necessary. 2, require oil and gas companies to capture 98% of the methane emissions, and we believe that it could be done and needs to be done before 2026. And 3, to strengthen state reporting and public notice requirements to improve transparency and accountability. Finally, the rules are of no value if there are not resources and personnel to adequately enforce them. And this is currently a huge problem in our state with OCC and also NMED. New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light has been working with people of faith to get methane rules for years now, first at the federal level and now here at the state level. These are really vital to address climate, our health, care of our sacred creation. We know that our state agency and citizens care, and we know you're working very hard, but we support every effort to make this happen and happen right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister Brown. Sister Parrott, Marlene Parrott.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Hearing Officer and Oil Conservation Commission. I am Marlene Parrott, a Sister of Mercy and a member of the Partnership for Earth Spirituality, living here in Albuquerque. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment on methane, venting, and flaring at this hearing. It is critical that this commission strengthen the methane waste rule. I have worked in the Artesian area and personally have observed the emission of methane gas through an infrared camera. Many of the clients that I worked with have headaches, asthma, and they were very prevalent. Even myself, when I went into that area and came out of it, I would have headaches. The air quality is very poor. The simple fact of being human moves people to care for the environment of which we are part, realizing that it is our responsibility and duty to redress the damage caused by human abuse of God's creation. Social ethics demands caring for our common home. We are entrusted with helping to raise the Oil Conservation Commission's redress to the problems of methane. Following the science, we need strong legal requirements to prevent methane from being vented into the atmosphere. It is critical to adopt rules that hold polluters accountable. I want to stress that. Adopt rules that hold polluters accountable and cut emissions across the oil and gas supply chain. So, the other is we cannot exempt 95% of wells from regulation across the state from oversight and basic leak detection and repair requirements. I strongly encourage the commission to deny drilling of new wells if out of compliance, if these polluters are out of compliance with gas capture requirements. NMED and New Mexico Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Division need to have rules to protect the earth community, clean air, clean water, and healthy soil. And we have to have the resources for implementation, strong regulations, implementations, and enforcement, and it cannot be delayed. All agencies must work together for comprehensive rules to protect us and our very life planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next commenters are Sandra Ely, Richard Mark Glover, Striegel, Kyle Fiore. Ms. Ely?
Good morning, Madam Hearing Officers and members of the Commission. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Sandra Ely, and I'm the Environmental Protection Division Director for the New Mexico Environment Department. The Environment Department and the Energy and Minerals and Natural Resources Department have been working together since early 2019 to develop strategies to reduce waste and air pollution in New Mexico's oil and gas industry. These strategies are designed to meet the state's greenhouse gas emission reduction target, improve air quality, reduce waste of a valuable resource, and increase royalties to the state. The agency set out to draft separate but complementary rules, with NMED's rules addressing air pollution and MNERD's rules addressing waste. With that in mind, the two agencies worked together for nearly 2 years, and during that time jointly held multiple stakeholder meetings with a diverse group of stakeholders, convened the Methane Advisory Panel to create a comprehensive technology support document, and met frequently to discuss stakeholder input and rule development. This approach enabled the two departments to craft rules that are not duplicative, do not conflict, and do not leave regulatory gaps. The two sets of rules are designed to work together to provide full coverage of the industry to achieve the waste and pollution reductions New Mexicans deserve. While MNERD's rules are before the Commission this month, NMED will go before its rulemaking body in April to propose a hearing this summer. The Environment Department strongly supports the proposed rules before the Oil Conservation Commission and encourages the Commission to adopt these rules as written. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Eads. Richard Mark Glover. Mr. Glover? No? We'll hope to hear from him later. Ruth Striegel.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Striegel from Albuquerque. I'm a retired public school teacher and a church musician. I serve on the board of the New Mexico chapter of Interfaith Power and Light. Thank you for your work in this area and for allowing me to comment. I'm asking that the Oil Conservation Commission strengthen the proposed methane waste rules. Having spent 35 years teaching in New Mexico schools, I'm very aware that our school budgets are always stretched very thin, and that income from taxes and royalties on extractive industries is a very important source of revenue. As a person of faith, it's extremely important to me that we support the health and well-being of all people, including those living near oil and gas installations. And as someone who values the natural world and is extremely concerned about climate change, I can't begin to understand how we can allow this potent greenhouse gas to be released into the atmosphere. The methane waste rule must ban routine venting and flaring and require operators to capture 98% of methane emissions. According to a recent report, the oil and gas sector is generating over half of the greenhouse gas emissions in New Mexico. We must hold operators accountable for maintaining their equipment in good condition so that leaks don't occur. The methane waste rule should strengthen reporting and public notice requirements to make sure that operators are actually following through. The rule should ensure that leaks and repairs are verified by an independent third party. We need more inspectors at the well sites rather than depending on the industry to self-monitor. Operators whose equipment is leaking methane should not be issued new drilling permits until they clean up their act. Operators should be required to notify the public when methane releases endanger public and environmental health. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Ms. Striegel. Kyle Fiore.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Oil Conservation Commission for the opportunity to speak. My name is Kyle Fiore and I live in Albuquerque. I'm a member of the African Methodist Episcopal Church and I work with New Mexico Interfaith Power and Light. I strongly support the Commission's, believe that the Commission's final ruling needs to strongly support stronger controls that will ban routine venting and flaring except when necessary, ensure accountability of gas and oil operations, and require gas and oil companies to capture 98% of methane emissions. It's the nature of these methane emissions that I want to underscore today. Methane is a dangerous and, in New Mexico, a precious gas. Methane gas is responsible for 25% of climate change. Methane is also a primary component of natural gas. Were methane properly captured, it could bring in upwards of $43 million, monies that could be used to fund public education for our children. Public education is a right and a privilege that's very dear to me. As a mother and a grandmother, I've worked with my children and grandchildren as they struggled in our public schools. I'm not alone in this struggle. New Mexico public schools ranked 49th in the United States in 2018. The New Mexico Coalition for Literacy estimates that an astonishing 46% of the adults in our state are functional illiterates. Numbers like this can only exist if you have one of the worst public school systems in the United States. Faced with these statistics and the knowledge that the capture of methane gases could bring in close to $43 million, to shore up our broken education system? The proper capture of methane emissions appears simple and critical necessity, both for our environment and our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fiore. The three next commenters are David Patterson, Pat Bellato, and Anita Amstutz. Mr. Patterson,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Are you ready for me to talk?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. This is the first time that I have ever been involved in something like this. I retired a couple of years ago, and my wife and I have loved New Mexico for years and years. And back in the 70s and early 80s, she traveled up and down New Mexico with an artist circle and just loves everything about it. When we retired, I wanted to start speaking up for nature and trying to help nature. And in the results of my reading, I started finding that you can't help nature unless you deal with the things that are causing extinction in this country. And my wife and I both reached the conclusion that New Mexico cannot continue to call itself the land of enchantment when a huge methane cloud sits over the Four Corners area, home to thousands of indigenous Americans, many of them living within half a mile of a production site. The American Lung Association gave San Juan County an F for ozone. Fine particulate matter often spikes at more than twice the EPA levels for hazardous. And so today, I challenge the Board of Governors to go to the extraction area where thousands of poor people are stuck and smell the air and talk to the people most affected for 10 days and then make your decision. I agree with everything that everyone has said today, with the exception of perhaps the guy who said none of us like regulation. I love regulation. Regulation keeps us, has helped us save many animals. It's helped save many lives. And I'm a big believer, especially in more regulation for an industry that shows very little concern for human life in so many areas. We all know we're already in a crisis with climate change getting more severe every year. We're already losing thousands of species, living things every year because of fossil fuels. You know that. We know that. We all know that. It's time to act now to stop methane leaks, whether they are small wells or large ones. Please stop kicking the issue down the road. You have a responsibility and opportunity to help New Mexico as a state to move much faster to protect our people, our air, our water, our future, our land. Please act now. Act boldly to protect this beautiful state from more deadly pollution. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. And thank you to all those who have spoken already today. I agree with them wholeheartedly, but I want us to act and stop having studies. We know what we need to know. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Pat Boletto, and let me apologize. I could be apologizing all day in the event I'm mispronouncing your name.
No, you're perfect. Thank you very much. My name is Pat Boletto, and I live in Albuquerque, where I've been since moving from Gallup. I'm a strong Christian, and my Bible reading disclosed that creation care is the very core of our Christian walk, and plus the health and welfare of my grandchildren and the children and friends that I worked with on the Navajo Reservation is at the very core of why I feel compelled to speak during this public comment period regarding the methane rules. And thank you for that opportunity. Much of our school funding comes from oil and gas revenues, but we're not only losing millions in revenue by not capturing more than the 1.1 million tons of wasted methane, but we are adding to the cost of health, respiratory problems, damage to our environment, to ourselves, and our future generations. Methane is a powerful greenhouse gas responsible for about 25% of the climate change we are experiencing today. Wasted methane costs our schools upwards of $43 million in royalty and tax revenue. The proposed rule is a good start, but we need to strengthen it. We need to strengthen it by banning routine venting and flaring, and only allow such activities when necessary for health and safety, and require flaring over venting except when necessary for health and safety, requiring oil and gas companies to capture 98% of methane emissions, strengthen state reporting and public notice requirements to improve transparency and ensure accountability of oil and gas operations, and not permit oil and gas operations of the companies who are not following safety rules and are not maintaining their equipment. Once again, I want to thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I'm so excited to see our state moving forward on this after many years of hitting our heads against the wall. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Vallejo. Anita Amstutz.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Please go ahead.
Greetings. My name is Anita Amstutz, and I want to thank all of the honorable committee members and those who have spoken today. I am a beekeeper and a board member of New Mexico Beekeepers Association, and also founder of Think Like a Bee, which is a nonprofit for a pollinator and education and advocacy. We have beekeepers in both the Four Corners and the Permian Basin areas of oil and gas exploration. We all know these days that bees need clean air, clean water, and clean soil and good habitat to thrive. These days, they are barely surviving for all the reasons we've noted on this call and more. And we know they are the canaries in the mine. What's good for bees is good for humans. Today, we are talking about methane from the oil and gas industry, billions of tons poured into our air regularly. My dad was a farmer. I'm a farmer's daughter. He raised pigs. And when I used to complain about the smell of the pigs, he would say, Anita, that is the smell of money. Well, in New Mexico, the smell of millions of tons of vented or flared wasted methane is not the smell of money. It is the smell of waste. It is money because, as we've heard in earlier comments, wasted methane, when captured, can translate to millions of dollars or royalties into state funds for our schools, infrastructures, and certainly for our public health crisis right now with COVID. I fear that New Mexico is a banana republic, meaning we are dependent on foreign capital of oil and gas exploration by allowing any and all companies, no matter what their industry practices, regardless of financial solvency, to come into our state and exploit our national resources, take the money, and run, means New Mexico gets a fraction of the income already. And New Mexico is still a very poor state, as we know, while our precious air, water, and land is used up. So economically, this is a boom or bust cycle, which will leave us with stranded assets, a plundered and destroyed landscape, as we've heard, and taxpayers like all of us on this call holding the bag to clean up while our communities, human and non-human, pay with their health, with respiratory, skin, and immune system diseases and cancers for our children, particularly our Danae. So we must balance our quality of life with the economics of any industry. Without reasonable regulation of oil and gas industries, who have been documented not to care about regulation, but rather about their own money, their greed, and profit, we call for you.
Wrap up, please.
Yes. So I just want to, with everyone else, call for you, the New Mexico Oil Conservation Commission, to put our human land, air, water, and pollinator health first so we can have thriving communities, and strengthen this proposed methane waste rule to eliminate unnecessary methane waste. And also, I want to just highlight that we deny or revoke permits to those who are unwilling or unable to comply. So thank you so much for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Amstutz. Let me loop back to the three commenters who did not speak up, called their names earlier in this time slot. Patricio Larragoita. Is Mr. Larragoita with us? Nope. Okay. Steve Gross. Is Mr. Gross with us? And Richard Mark Glover. Is Mr. Glover with us? No. All right. We're going to move then to the public commenters in the next time slot. I will call on you in this order. Reverend David Wilson Rogers, Joanne Ferrari, Yvonne Pescara, Wendy Atcity, Regina Nordquist, Gloria Lamer, Tara Lujan, and Leland Bowen. Just two reminders. Please try to keep your comments to 2 minutes. I will ask you to wrap up as you get to 2 minutes. And in the event you would like to add more for the Commission's consideration as part of this rulemaking, please submit comment in writing to Florine Davidson. You'll find her contact information on the OCD webpage. And Commissioners, we will, after this next set of comments, take a short break, unless someone needs a break now. Any of you please speak up, or the court reporter may speak up, obviously. No? Okay. Let's start then with Reverend David Wilson Rogers. Mr. Rogers, Reverend Rogers?
Good morning. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Well, I wish to thank all of you on the panel for taking the time to hear my concerns. I am the Reverend David Wilson Rogers of Carlsbad, New Mexico, and I've been living in this county for 21 years. In this time, I've seen and appreciate the economic value from the industry, but I have also seen its catastrophic destruction. In 2019, I traveled to Madrid, Spain to speak to the United Nations Conference on Global Climate Change and to speak about my community here in Carlsbad, which is being overrun by largely unregulated, unmonitored, and uncontained methane release. It's no secret that this volatile gas is a climate bomb that is destroying our planet. Yet in Madrid, I also saw firsthand how the deep pockets of the wealthy oil and gas industry have befuddled both the public at large and global governments with the lie that they have atmospheric pollution under control. And I stated then on that global stage that a day would come when the bottom would fall out of the oil and gas market and the inadequate governmental and industry infrastructure necessary to clean up the mess would be overwhelmed. Sadly, my prediction came true this past spring. I also want to reference a September 20th, 2020 New York Times article by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Hiroko Tabushi, who reported on the deceptive disconnect between what the industry knows it is doing and what, in the motivation of pure profit, the industry intends to communicate. This well-funded marketing effort is covering up the vomitous expulsion of toxic gas in our atmosphere because it makes a better short-term business profit to destroy the environment than to invest the money necessary to save the planet from environmental collapse. My point is simple. The proposed rule is a good step in the right direction, but it does not go far enough. When known violators are allowed to continue violating without sufficient restrictions, and the exceptions to the rule allow too many loopholes through which toxic emissions continue to be allowed, there is no stopping this climate bomb. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your opportunity that you gave us to speak our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Rogers. Joanne Ferrari. Ms. Ferrari? No? Ms. Ferrari? No. Yvonne?
She's unmuted. She's here and she's unmuted.
Oh. Ms. Ferrari, can you hear us? Okay, I'll call on her again after we've taken the next several commenters. Yvonne Pescara.
Good morning. This is Yvonne. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Good morning. I'm Yvonne Pescara. I'm a resident of Taos and a volunteer with the Sierra Club. Thank you to the Oil Conservation Committee for this opportunity to provide comment on methane venting and flaring. As we've heard others say, methane is a powerful greenhouse gas that is responsible for 25% of the climate change we're experiencing today. Personally, I am experiencing climate change here in Taos. In my past decade living here, so in just 10 years I'm talking about, our winters are shorter, our snowfall amounts are very small. We're skiing on artificial snow. This means the spring runoff is considerably lower. How low? This past summer, the Rio Grande dropped below 200 cubic feet per second. That means the water level in the Rio was so low, you could walk across it in some spots like a creek. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Rio here in Taos in the gorge, it's usually so deep, it drowns a couple of river rafters almost every year. So for the fact that we could walk across it in some spots shows you how low the water level dropped because there was no snow, no spring runoff. Now that's just the present that I'm talking about. I'm also personally afraid about the future of wildfires. As you know, the whole state is in drought, no matter where you live in New Mexico. And the Taos population, we sit in a valley between a dry high mesa and a dry Sangre de Cristo mountain range. It's like living in a matchbox. I respectfully request that the Oil Conservation Commission strengthen the methane waste rules with 3 concrete actions. 1, please toughen the provisions to ensure that flares stay lit and work properly at all times. 2, please prohibit routine venting and flaring during pipeline maintenance and repairs. And 3, please deny permits to drill new wells if operators are out of compliance with gas capture requirements. Thank you for this opportunity. I am done with my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Pescara. Wendy at City. Is that City? No. I will loop back. Regina Nordquist. Ms. Nordquist? Okay. Gloria Lemer or Lamer?
Yes. Hi. My name, excuse me. My name is Gloria Lemer, and I am a lifelong resident of San Juan County, New Mexico, and I live in Farmington. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I serve on the boards of the River Reach Foundation, on the steering committee for the San Juan Water Group, and I am president of our Owners Association. Today I am a private citizen. My thanks to the Oil Conservation Commission for the opportunity to provide comment. I support the strengthening of the Oil Conservation Division's proposed methane waste rules to eliminate unnecessary methane waste. Living in the San Juan Basin all of my life, I have gone through the many booms and busts of the industry. Although I don't deny the so-called legacy of oil and gas in our area and in our state, I have been speaking up about the issue of methane waste and pollution and its impact on public health, safety, and our environment for many years now. It is not lost on me that the Four Corners area in which I have lived since 1959 was designated as an energy sacrifice zone in the 1970s by then President Nixon. I have seen the negative impacts of flaring, venting, leaks, explosions, job accidents, the excess use and destruction of land and water, and more recently, drought and wildfires north of us near Durango, Colorado, in the Four Corners. I have witnessed this firsthand. I've been along with the FLIR camera operators to see the chemicals being vented and flared into our air and gases. Tens of thousands of well sites dot our landscape inside and outside of the city limits here in Farmington and all throughout San Juan County, near schools and homes, including mine. Now, during attempts to transform our area into a tourism and outdoor recreation draw, the impacts have become even more pronounced. Personally, my husband and I own land on a well site currently being abandoned as it is no longer producing. There will be no chance of fully reclaiming it because of what we are told must be left in place both above and below the surface. The final methane rule, in my opinion, must ban routine venting and flaring except when necessary for health and safety, and require flaring over venting except when necessary for health and safety. Please require oil and gas companies to capture 98% of methane emissions by 2026, which will save millions in royalty and tax revenue for our state. Strengthen state reporting and public notice requirements to improve transparency and ensure accountability of oil and gas operations. Voluntary reporting by the industry has not proven to be a reliable method for transparency and accountability. I believe it's enough. It's been enough already. The time is now for a strong methane rule for New Mexico. We can lead in the nation. Thank you again to the OCC for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Lamer. Tara Lujan. Ms. Lujan?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Oil Conservation Commission for allowing me to have the opportunity to say a few words. I'm Representative Tara Lujan. I represent House District 48 in Santa Fe County. I just want to make a quick note here. The EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler, I'm give a quote from the rollbacks of regulations from the Trump administration, stated after the President Trump revoked Obama era regulations targeting methane emissions from gas and oil industry in August of this past year. He stated, "Today's regulatory changes remove redundant paperwork and allow companies the flexibility to satisfy leak control requirements by complying with equivalent state rules." And this is why we here in New Mexico have the opportunity to lead, where we can move to stronger, more responsible regulations. And as you've heard from many today, that's what we're asking for. We are in a climate crisis, and though the rules that we are looking at are a very good start, we need to look at how to strengthen them to reach critical climate strategy goals of, excuse me, I need a drink water, to make if we're going to make a significant dent with greenhouse gas emissions and meet those goals by 2030, and also support our governor's call for nation-leading methane rules as well. We know that this pollutant is responsible for 25% of our climate change, and is also released with ozone-forming pollutants that we know are worsening our public health outcomes. So we're asking for some of the, strengthening regulatory help, much that was already mentioned today, with more transparency, more accountability, more enforcement, real enforcement for non-compliancy. Without these things, we're looking for and asking for, we are going to worsen the outcome that we already are facing right now with the climate destruction. And what we do now, what we can do now to stop the Earth's temperature by putting these regulations forward will ensure and help to create a more sustainable future. So I thank you for the time, and I respectfully ask you to look at those regulations and these rules and lead with us in a more responsible and ethical government. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhan. Leland Bowen. Leland Bowen. Mr. Bowen? All right. Let me move back to the others for this time slot. Joanne Ferrari.
Thank you.
Oh, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I I'm Representative Joanne Ferrari from House District 37, which is the east side of Las Cruces. And I've been concerned about the methane waste and its toll it has taken on New Mexico. I'm a House member of the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee, and I've been concerned about methane waste and pollution in our state for a long time. It's costing our schools millions in revenue and ruining our air and harming our climate now and for the future generations. And unlike other top producing oil and gas states, New Mexico has no requirements prohibiting methane waste and associated pollution from escaping. And that constitutes an immediate health threat to all New Mexicans, and it needs to change. As a member of the Legislative Education Study Interim Committee, we need every dollar available for our educational system. And we can't afford to waste methane dollars. Each year, oil and gas companies waste $271 million worth of natural gas through venting, flaring, and leaks, which costs the state over $43 million in royalty and tax revenue that could fund public education and other critical services. And I'm also House Health and Human Services Committee Vice Chair, and it's critical that we understand that methane also is a powerful climate change pollutant and responsible for 25% of warming we experience today. Southern New Mexico has set record-breaking temperatures in recent years, and the drought combined threatens our future crop production in our state. And in addition, oil and gas operations release ozone-forming pollutants that worsen respiratory diseases such as emphysema and asthma. And if action isn't taken, increasing oil and gas production will lead to even higher pollution levels. We have seen this in Doña Ana County, in Chaparral area, the southeastern part of our county. And that area where there's gas utility production, it's causing health problems for children and their families. Please consider strengthening the proposed methane waste rules to eliminate unnecessary methane waste. We owe it to New Mexico as well as the world to mitigate quickly the effects of methane waste in order to stall climate change and its lasting effects. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ferrari. Let me loop back to Wendy at City.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to thank the Oil Conservation Commission, OCC, for this public hearing. My name is Wendy at City, and my family is from the Eastern Agency of the Navajo Nation that rests within the San Juan Basin. I'm adding my comment to the OCC regarding the rulemaking regulation. I wasn't aware as a child when walking outside my family's land, I was breathing decades of harmful, dangerous methane, volatile organic compounds, and ozone gases into my lungs. As a young adult, being mesmerized by the 24-hour flaring of 2 well pads sitting less than a mile from my relatives' home sites. My family, my relatives, my great-grandchildren's home is in this cloud of methane, VOCs, and ozone gases. This is our homeland forever. New Mexico OCC's proposed rule for vents and flares is critical for our health and that of our relatives of plants, animals, insects, and water. We need to speak for them as they suffer the ills of extreme unhealthy mix of methane, VOCs, and ozone, compounding into our sacred airspace. I found it striking when, as an adult, hiking Gouverneur Knob, counting many oil and gas well pads within feet of sacred cultural spaces that our people inhabited hundreds of years ago. I smelt this dangerous cloud of gases and stood in sadness to it. In the summer of 2019, I counted 14 oil and gas well sites within 2 miles of my family's land. This proposed rule is critical and must require the impacted communities and public input in developing safety standards and allow communities access to reports for transparency. We can make right a wrong for the venting and flaring regulation for oil and natural gas production and gathering facilities, as we know more now than ever that our health is most sacred. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Atsidi. Looping back again, Regina Nordquist. Ms. Nordquist.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Had some trouble. So first of all, thank you committee members for this opportunity to comment on the proposed oil and gas regulations. My name is Regina Nordquist and I live in Placitas, New Mexico. I'm speaking here today because we are all impacted by the climate changes visible all around us. And this is an opportunity to make my voice heard in support of New Mexico oil and gas industry regulations with teeth, enforceable regulations that make sense for the environment and that would make a big difference for New Mexico air quality and public health. For me personally, bad air quality impacts me in that I have had pneumonia 3 times since moving here in 2007. Prior to moving here, I never had pneumonia. And I'm now regarded as having compromised lungs. We have a golden opportunity here to create oil and gas industry regulations that are environmentally sound and enforceable, that contribute to the personal health and well-being of all New Mexicans, and that provide tax and royalty money to public education, all by cutting oil and gas industry waste. Our Governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, has called on New Mexico for nation-leading methane rules. To do that, the rules as proposed must be strengthened. As presented, New Mexico Environmental Department's draft rule exempts 95% of wells across the state from oversight and basic leak detection and repair. This borders on incomprehensible for me, since nearly 70% of oil and gas methane pollution in New Mexico occurs through leaks. The new regulations need to include tough provisions to make sure flares stay lit and function properly at all times to prevent methane from being vented in the atmosphere. When a leak occurs or a malfunction, there must be provision in the regulations for reporting and correcting that. The new regulations also need to deny permits to drill new wells when operators are out of compliance with gas capture requirements on their existing wells. New Mexico.
Would you wrap up, please?
Sure. So unlike other top oil and gas producing states, New Mexico has no requirements prohibiting methane waste and associated pollution from escaping. We have a golden opportunity here, and we can increase revenues and royalties that will go directly to public education. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nordquist. And our final loop back in this session is Leland Bowen. Mr. Bowen? Mr. Bowen? No? All right. Our next session begins at 10:30, which is roughly 30 minutes from now. We will be on a 30-minute break. Let me mention the names of those signed up in the next time slot and the order in which I will call you. Stacy Slay, Denton McCullough, John Klingel, Laurie Tiller Howell, and Rose Marie Cicchini. Thank you. We'll see you all at 10:30.
Ms. Orth, over the break, can you check the audio settings on your microphone and maybe see if you can adjust the sensitivity? I can hear you fine, but you are a little faint. And we've had a couple of people ask if you can try to modify your microphone.
Okay. Let's see, if I turn this up, does that help?
That still sounds the same. There should be an arrow next to the mute button that has the audio options,
Yes.
and you should be able to adjust the settings on your microphone through that pop-up.
You might have to talk me through this then.
Okay. So when on the pop-up, there should be a settings option.
Okay. Let me turn off my video so you're not looking up my nose. Let's see here. So I have my screen is lighting up, but now I don't see a box, if you know what I mean.
Is there an arrow next to your mute button that says audio options when you roll over it?
Oh, you mean in the WebEx, not on my keyboard.
Correct, yeah.
All right, sorry. I was playing
No,
with
you're
my
good.
keyboard. Let's see. Audio and video.
Yeah, so if you click that arrow, it should give you a pop-up that has your speaker and microphone settings, and then it has an option that says settings.
Yes.
If you click on settings, there should be a slider below your microphone that has input volume.
All right.
If you slide that to the right, it should adjust
Oh,
the sensitivity of your microphone.
you know what? It is like toward the left-hand side of that slider.
Yeah, that should
So
be.
is this better? Is this better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Oh, Mr. Baca? Oh, Balin, would you unmute Mr. Baca?
Yeah.
Or I don't think I can do that.
There you go.
Balin or Madam Chair, would you please email me a copy of all those names that of the people that just spoke so I could get the spellings correct, please?
I have a copy of it.
And my email address is assistant.
Hang on one sec. I put my email. Okay, go ahead.
Assistant at pbcrs.com.
pbcrs.com. Assistant at pbcrs.com.
Yeah, Paul Baca, courtreportingservice.com.
Okay, I'll email it to you now.
Okay, I'll wait for it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so Balin, back to me. Is this better? I do sometimes tend to sit back from my computer.
Yeah, it sounds better on my end right now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for walking me through that.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's see. Were there any other issues?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Looks like we have just 5 at 10:30, but then we have lots of folks between 12:30 and 1. Just looking at this sheet. And I don't know if this is going to be updated again in the middle of the day, but I guess we'll hear from Florine if that's true.
Yeah, she hasn't sent me anything yet, but I'm watching my email, so.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I think I'll go get a second cup of coffee.
Sounds good.
This is Felicia Orth. It is 10:30. Let's come back from the break, please. Ms. Taka, are you ready? Terrific, thank you. My name is Felicia Orth. I'm a hearing officer appointed by the Oil Conservation Commission to conduct a hearing in this matter. The rulemaking hearing before the Commission on the venting or flaring of methane, case number 21528. We're taking public comment today and the first part of tomorrow. Just a few reminders. Please try to keep your comment to 2 minutes. In the event you have more you wish the Commission to consider, please submit that comment in writing to Florine Davidson, whose contact information is on the Oil Conservation Division Outreach and Public Engagement page. Those signed up in this time slot, and I'll call you in this order, are Stacy Slay, Denton McCullough, John Klingel, Laurie Tiller Howell, and Rose Marie Cicchini. I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Please identify yourself when you are unmuted and identify any affiliation you might have. I'll begin with Ms. Slay. Stacy Slay.
She was just here. It looked like she dropped off.
Okay, I will invite her again after we've taken the next commenters. Denton McCullough. Denton McCullough. No. John Klingel. No. Laurie Tiller Howell. Ms. Howell? No.
Yeah, she's here, I think. She should be unmuted.
Just,
Ms. Howell?
I was hoping that I wouldn't be the first so that I could figure out how this all works. But as it is, you get this newbie talking. My name is Larry Tiller Howell. I live in Albuquerque, and I am a very interested citizen, have been an interested citizen for decades. And I am very interested in this issue, and especially making the issue stronger and more committing the oil and gas companies to follow basic rules that are needed for this time period. We obviously are coming into a very serious warming trend that the methane capture is necessary. Instead of just slapping hands, we need to have a purposeful, a fine, real consequences for the misbehaviors. We need to ban the routine venting and flaring. When I was 50 years old, seeing venting of methane gas, I thought, my God, this has got to stop. And that was a while ago. And it's still going on. It's the methane may be a pittance to the oil and gas companies, but it is huge to the economy of New Mexico and huge to the health and safety of the citizens of New Mexico, and of course, the methane that pollutes the atmosphere and that generates 53% of all the greenhouse gases in the state. Apparently, we are the worst state as far as not really constraining the oil and gas industries from doing the polluting that they are doing. The amount of money that is spent going up in flames is tremendous from the state's point of view, but probably moot from the oil and gas companies' point of view. We need to improve the state reporting of leaks and be accountable for those leaks and improve the transparency and actually have a commission to oversee whether the oil and gas companies are acting in a community and earthly best interest, not just in their bottom line. We're
Ms.
past.
Howell, would you wrap up, please?
Oops, that went fast. Anyway, I would like to see more meaningful fines, transparency, and some third-party oversight to ensure integrity. That's all. That went fast.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Howell. Rosemarie Cicchini.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I'm Rosemarie Cicchini, a Maryknoll sister. I serve as director of the Office of Peace, Justice, and Creation with Catholic Charities of Gallup Diocese and live in Gallup, New Mexico. And I'd like to thank members of the Oil Conservation Commission for this opportunity to provide comment at this hearing. In my visits to faith communities in the counties of northeastern New Mexico, people have shared with me the adverse health and environmental impacts they continue to suffer from due to heightened ozone pollution in the Four Corners area, as well as the unregulated oil and gas operations that continue to emit methane gas through venting, flaring, leaks, and associated toxic pollution. These local residents described to me how these sources of ozone pollution are causing increases in asthma attacks, especially in children and elders, lung inflammation and injury, heart attacks, the emergency room visits and respiratory-related hospitalization. And all these adverse impacts are causing just increased vulnerability in people to the current coronavirus pandemic. Our faith traditions teach that creation is God-given and sacred, intended for the well-being and flourishing of all human and planetary life. And Pope Francis states in Laudate Si on Care of Our Common Home that the air of the atmosphere is a sacred commons, essential for all planetary life, and therefore it's a sacred trust that requires us to consider all the moral, ethical, and environmental justice dimensions that need to be incorporated in our state and federal laws and regulations to ensure the common good. So these unregulated methane releases are a powerful climate change pollutant, 80 times more polluting than carbon dioxide, and they're responsible for 25% of the warming we experience today. Since 70% of the oil and gas methane pollution in New Mexico occurs through this leak, we urge the Oil Conservation Commission to further strengthen the Oil Conservation Division's proposed methane waste rules to eliminate unnecessary methane waste, to protect all species of life in New Mexico for present and future generations. The final rule must achieve three very important objectives. The first, prohibit routine venting and flaring during pipeline maintenance and repairs, and only allow for flaring if necessary for safety. And second, require oil and gas companies to capture 98% of methane emissions by 2026. And third, strengthen state reporting and public notice requirements to improve the transparency and ensure accountability of the oil and gas operations. And thank you so much for taking these comments.
Thank you, Ms. Giacchini. Let me loop back to Stacy Slay. Ms. Slay? Ms. Slay?
Yes.
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry I had to get up for just a second. I'm putting my oxygen on and getting this up to where I can see it. So I've got 2 minutes to go.
Yes, please start.
My name is Stacy Slay, and I live in La Plata, New Mexico, up in the Four Corners. And the methane problem is really bad out here. I was trying to get my camera going so you could see the condition I'm in. I have MS, and I am on 4 liters of oxygen a minute. So this has extra special meaning for me that I'm supporting Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's call for nation-leading methane rules. We're missing out on money that could be used for our schools and roads. We're missing out on clean air, which could be used to promote the state's tourism. The fact that the methane is being allowed to escape and flaring units are being allowed to operate without the flaring unit even working means that everybody in and downwind of all these wells are breathing benzene and other horribly cancerous agents. I know I have days that are, I can't explain why I have problems, but all you have to do is look at the satellite and you can see the image of all the revenue we're wasting, millions of dollars that could be going towards the state, towards taxation. So I'm here to basically support Michelle Lujan Grisham's desire to make nation-leading rules. We can do this. We have the technology. It's time to do it. We need to ban routine venting and flaring and only do such activities when it's necessary for health and safety concerns. We need to require flaring and venting exceptions only for health and safety. It cannot be just up to anybody. Right now, we're trying to get loopholes in the methane rules we have. We've got to stop that. We need to require oil and gas companies to capture 98% of this methane. That is absolutely easily doable and will mean lots of money for us. We need to strengthen state reporting and public notice requirements and improve transparency and ensure accountability of oil and gas operations. It's described as the Wild West out here when it comes to oil and gas operations. Methane is a powerful greenhouse gas, and it's responsible for about 25% of the climate change we're already experiencing. Are you still there? My cat just ran over the computer.
Yes, would you please wrap up?
Yes, I am wrapping up. In fact, I basically just I'm saying that for health, country, state, and the world, we need better methane rules. We can absolutely do this. We don't have them because some powerful people with money are talking and being heard. So please, 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 let's get some better rules and get rid of all the loopholes. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Looping back, has Denton McCullough joined us? Denton McCullough.
Hello?
Hello, is this Mr. McCullough?
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Is this Mr. McCullough?
Hello?
Hello, this is Felicia Orth. Is this Mr. McCullough?
Yes, it is.
Okay, if you would please, you have 2 minutes to offer your public comment.
Okay. As a resident of the Permian Basin, I'm very concerned about the release of 1 million tons of methane into the air that we breathe. It degrades our natural resources and can have a detrimental effect on our farming and ranching economies. our thriving tourism industry. Also, we have 2 national parks and several state parks in the area. So I think it discourages people from traveling to the area because of the pollution of our air. In addition, there's a tremendous loss of tax revenue and royalties to the state of New Mexico, especially for education. I'm especially concerned about the impact of the release of methane on climate change, and I urge the state of New Mexico to enact common sense regulations to curtail the release of methane gas into the environment. I've been a long-time resident of Carlsbad. It used to be a really wonderful place to live, but I feel like the oil and gas industry and methane release in particular is ruining our environment and our quality of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Finally, looping back, John Klingel. Is John Klingel with us? Mr. Klingel? No? All right. Let me say then that we will be on break until 12:30 today. And the first 5 commenters in the 12:30 slot are Gary Oakley, Hazel James Toe, Linda Birchfield, Susan Selman, and Jonathan Longoria. Thank you all very much. We'll reconvene at 12:30.
Balin, if you just want to, I mean, we can pause the recording and start it back up at 12:30.
Okay, no problem.
That may be easiest.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? Thank you. My name is Felicia Orth. I'm a hearing officer appointed by the Oil Conservation Commission to conduct a hearing in this matter involving proposed rules for the venting or flaring of methane. Oh, Mr. Baca?
Okay. Am I unmuted? Oh, yeah. Madam Chair, my computer crashed. It'll take me 1 second, okay?
All righty.
I'm sorry for the technology nowadays. Okay, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I apologize, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Baca.
No, thank you.
I'll start again. My name is Felicia Orth. I'm a hearing officer appointed by the Oil Conservation Commission to conduct a hearing in this matter, which is a proposed rulemaking regarding the venting or flaring of methane. The case number is 21528. This is the afternoon session in which we will accept public comment. All 3 commissioners are with us for the comment session. You see the chair of the commission, Adrienne Sandoval. We also have commissioners Engler, and Kessler. Thank you all. There are a variety of commission staff. Commission counsel is on the line. You will also see representatives of some of the technical parties in this matter. The technical presentations begin tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. All of the time between now and then is devoted to public comment. There are a number of public comment windows also on every subsequent day of the hearing between now and January 15th. Please go to the Oil Conservation Division webpage for outreach and public engagement, where you will find all relevant documents in this record. When you make a comment, you may find yourself with a question from our party or commissioner. Please know that we're asking you to keep your comments to 2 minutes. When you hit 2 minutes, I will break in to ask you to wrap up your comment. And in the event you have more to say, please do put it in writing and submit that public written comment to Florence Davidson. You'll find her contact information on the Oil Conservation Division webpage. Know that in the event there is disruption or an attempt to use vile language, for example, you may be expelled without warning, in which case I would encourage you to reflect and submit your public comment. Please collect your thoughts as we have just one opportunity for each person to offer comment. So, turning to the commenters, I will call on you in this order. Gary Oakley, Hazel James Toa, Linda Birchfield, Susan Selbin, and Jonathan Longoria are our first 5 commenters. Gary Oakley, are you with us? Mr. Oakley? No? In the event folks have stepped away from their computer or have not been able to appear for their time slot, know that I do loop back before I end each session, and I'm happy to invite your comment at a subsequent time. Hazel James Toa.
Good afternoon. This is Hazel James. I'm with the San Juan Collaborative for Health Equity and Danette Centered for Research and Evaluation. My testimony will include the communities in Northwest New Mexico has historically impacted by methane emissions, with a particular concern about emissions on the checkerboard landscape of the Navajo Nation. This area has seen increased development with flaring and unmitigated emissions associated with oil and gas drilling and production, on top of historic impacts associated with 40,000 existing oil and gas wells processing facilities throughout the region. I support 98% capture of methane by 2026, establishing a preference for flaring and overventing, and prohibiting routine flaring. I am most concerned about public and safety of the people who live in the communities where oil and facilities impact their lives on a daily basis. Protective measures for human and health safety must be prioritized in this methane rulemaking. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. James. Linda Birchfield.
Me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
All right. Then I'll go ahead. My name is Linda Birchfield. I live in Santa Fe, and I'm speaking for myself. I thank you for this opportunity to provide comments on the methane rule. I applaud the governor's decision to reduce methane waste because that waste damages New Mexico in at least three main ways. First, methane is a powerful greenhouse gas, and New Mexico oil and gas companies are currently emitting about 1.1 million tons annually, making up about 25% of our greenhouse gas. Greenhouse gases are already disrupting our climate here in New Mexico, and as they rise, climate disruption worsens. Second, with oil and gas companies wasting $271 million worth of natural gas each year, New Mexico loses $43 million in royalty and tax revenue, funds we need for public education and other critical services. A third destructive feature of methane waste is the ozone-forming pollutants that are released along with the methane, which exacerbate respiratory diseases such as asthma, emphysema, and probably COVID-19 as well. Methane rule needs to be strong and protected by effective oversight. The rules should, number one, require oil and gas companies to capture 98% of methane emissions by 2026. Number two, ban routine venting and flaring and allow flaring only when necessary for health or safety. Number three, strengthen state reporting and public notice to improve transparency and accountability. The proposal before you needs to be strengthened in many ways, and here are just two of those ways. Number one, require green completions to reduce methane waste. Number two, apply the rule to all wells across the oil and gas supply chain, making each well subject to oversight and basic leak detection and repair requirements. The draft rule exempts 95% of wells from regulation of leaks, even though leaks account for 70% of New Mexico's oil and gas pollution. I urge you to develop a strong and protected methane rule for the sake of New Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Birchfield. Susan Selvin.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'm Susan Selvin. I retired to Albuquerque in 2003 after working abroad. I chose New Mexico because of the beauty and cultural diversity of our state. And at the time, I wasn't aware of the extensive oil gas activity in the state. Those activities are often out of view of the general public. And I think if the public saw it all, they'd be horrified. In a low-level flight over the oil fields near Carlsbad, I was shocked to see the network of drilling sites. In case I run out of time, I do want to mention my most important point, which the last speaker also mentioned. The draft rule exempts 95% of wells from regulation oversight and basic leak detection and repair requirements. So if that is factual, the commission must address this issue. And now back to the rest of my comment. In 2019, together with volunteers, we presented 2 film festivals with speakers to promote awareness of climate change. However, this morning, for example, CBS presented results of a survey of public concerns. First was political polarization. Second was COVID. The third was climate change. So climate change is no longer an issue recognized by a minority of Americans. It's front and center and must be addressed urgently. So the New Mexico 2020 Climate Strategy Report found that greenhouse gas emissions from New Mexico oil and gas are more than twice the amount previously reported. That makes New Mexico a major source of methane releases in the country. Human-caused sources of methane are responsible for 25% of the global warming we feel today. Oil and gas companies release more than 1.1 million tons of methane, which has the same climate impacts as about 25 coal-fired power plants. Methane is also a primary component of natural gas, which means methane waste costs our school upwards of $43 million in royalty and tax revenue. I support our governor's commitment to adopting national leading rules to address New Mexico's methane problem. So the proposed methane rule is a good start, but it should be strengthened. And many other speakers have mentioned how that should happen. Nearly 70% of oil and gas methane pollution in New Mexico occurs through leaks. So it's critical that the New Mexico Environment Department adopt a rule that holds polluters accountable and cuts emissions across the oil and gas supply chain.
We wrap up, Ms. Selvin?
Okay. It's just that I want to be sure it's true that the rule exempts 95% of wells. Is that a fact? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Longoria. Mr. Longoria?
Gary Oakley's here.
Okay. Mr. Oakley.
Thank you. My name is Gary Oakley. I'm a board member of Conservation Voters New Mexico. And I just want to make a comment that history will look back at us and say, what are you doing? You are allowing flaring and venting of a very valuable non-renewable energy source just to be wasted into the air. That could power thousands of houses. Just to make it a little easier and cheaper to drill for oil. I think history will say, what were you thinking? You knew the cost. The cost is less money for schools, health issues for locals, climate degradation. It's almost like a river where you dump waste into it, but you're dumping a valuable waste. And it's bigger than a river. It's the whole planet that it affects. So please, we have the technology is the other thing. So please strengthen the regulations and don't issue permits unless there's full compliance. This is a lose-lose-lose situation, and it really needs to be straightened up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oakley. Well, let me call for Jonathan Longoria. Mr. Longoria? No? In the event he rejoins us, I'd be happy to take his comment. The next 5 commenters in this order are Chris Moore, Patricia Shealy, Penelope Maines, Timothy Peterson, and Jordan Smith. Call on Chris Moore.
Thank you, members of this commission, for this opportunity to speak. I know you have a long day ahead of you. My name is Chris Moore. I'm a professor at the Santa Fe Institute, and I'm speaking today as an individual. I want to point out a connection between methane leaks and our use of natural gas in power and transportation, which is maybe a little bit different from the points the other speakers have been making. We often hear that natural gas is a low-carbon alternative to conventional fossil fuels, that it can act as a bridge to renewable energy. It's true that burning natural gas in a power plant produces only half as much carbon dioxide as burning coal does. But first you have to get the gas to the power plant. And as you know, if any methane released into the atmosphere gets released along the way, it is more powerful than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas, over 80 times as powerful in the short term, and over 30 times as powerful over a century. It's an easy math problem to show that if more than about 3% of the methane gets leaked on its way to the power plant, the climate impact of natural gas is just as bad as coal. For transportation and fleet vehicles like buses and trucks where natural gas is competing with diesel engines, the allowed leakage is even less, about 1%. That's all the way from production at the well through the distribution system to the engine. And for natural gas to compete with renewable energy, the margin of error becomes even smaller. The upshot is that natural gas will not help us meet our climate goals unless this leakage is dramatically reduced by up to about 90% in some studies. And the increase we've seen over the past year shows that market forces alone are not enough for the industry to get this under control. I urge you to strengthen this draft rule to prevent venting and flaring except when needed for safety, to independent third parties verify leaks and repairs, to include all wells as opposed to exempting the majority of them, and to require that existing wells meet these standards before permitting operators to drill new ones. And please remember that this is not a zero-sum game with the industry. Properly monitoring and preventing methane leaks will create jobs and avoid wasting a valuable product. I'll also submit this in writing by email, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Patricia Shealy.
Hello, my name is Patricia Shealy, and I live in Gallup, New Mexico. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this issue that is important to me. I am a person of faith with strong moral convictions to care for my neighbors and God's creation. I grew up on a farm in Ohio and developed a closeness to the earth as I played in the woods and in the stream that ran through our farm. I moved to New Mexico in 1993 to work for Indian Health Service. I love New Mexico and its people and made the decision some years ago to retire here. I am concerned about the health of our children and their mothers and the effect that pollution has on their well-being. I am concerned that many of the residents of New Mexico are suffering disproportionately from the COVID-19 pandemic because of their already impaired health status. I am disturbed that many of the native plants in my backyard, which are drought resistant, died last summer due to the intense heat. I support Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's call for nation-leading methane rules. To meet that goal, the Oil Conservation Commission must strengthen the Oil Conservation Division's proposed methane waste rules to eliminate unnecessary methane waste. I am submitting my expanded comments in a letter to the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Penelope Maines.
I'm Penelope Maines from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I want to thank the OCC for your work and for this opportunity to comment. I've been a volunteer with Sierra Club and with 350 New Mexico. I have also been a volunteer with critically ill children, so I will address the health of New Mexico children. The American Lung Association State of the Air report in 2020 flunked Eddy and Lee counties for ozone pollution and San Juan County for ozone pollution. In addition, Dr. Lance Chilton, a retired Albuquerque pediatrician, states that 28,000 New Mexicans in the Permian Basin live within 1/2 mile of wells that would be exempted from requirements that could protect children's health. Obviously, the loopholes and exceptions for those wells must end. Think back to your grade school years. At recess on the playground, did you prefer the swings? Did you play tag? Or spend long times on the seesaw? Whichever it was, you played hard, unaware of the air around you and unaware of the fact that your young lungs were developing. If you were very unlucky, the air was poor quality and you may have ended up wheezing with asthma, unable to say more than one word or short phrase because you didn't have the air to breathe, unable to lie down because your body required the torso straight up in order for the few breaths you could get. Can you imagine that? We adults have the information and the power to vastly improve the air quality for children in New Mexico. To do that, we need to have strict regulations. We need to have the workforce and laws to enforce those regulations. And we, of course, need to end the exemptions and loopholes for sites that have low emissions projected or low production sites. As you've heard before, those wells comprise over 90% of the wells. Let's not drop the ball for the children of New Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baines. Timothy Peterson. Timothy Peterson. No. Jordan Smith. Jordan Smith. Let me call one more time for Jonathan Longoria. All right. The next comment session begins in 7 minutes. So let me read the names in the event someone is here a bit early. Be happy to take your comment instead of taking a short break. We have Trish Fashi, and excuse me if I am mispronouncing your name. Jacqueline Groves, Mariana K. Hollenberg, Nancy Weeks Singham, and Liliana Castillo. Let me begin with Trish. Jacqueline Groves. Mariana Kai Hollenberg.
Jacqueline Groves is here, sorry.
Oh, Jacqueline Groves is here? All right. Is that you, Miss Groves?
It's Govius. Thank you. Yes, I'm here.
Grovius, excuse me. Thank you for identifying yourself. And if you would please, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm Jacqueline Govius. I live in Las Cruces and I'm speaking as an individual. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to make a comment. New Mexico doesn't currently regulate methane waste, even though methane contributes 25% to climate change. This is a critical time that requires a strong methane rule. Currently, the latest data from the Permian show the highest release methane rate for a US oil and gas basin. And with the current drop in oil prices, oil and gas companies are going to be looking to cut corners on environmental protection. Governor Lujan Grisham has made a trailblazing methane directive, and the Commission needs to meet this with a strong rule by banning methane waste and holding companies accountable. So venting and flaring need to be banned. When new wells are being prepared for production, green completions should be used. So the gas should be captured at the wellhead instead of being released into the environment. Venting and flaring should be limited to, it should also be banned for routine pipeline maintenance and repair. If gas needs to be released for safety, flaring should be used over venting, and the provisions need to be toughened to make sure that the flares are lit and that they're working properly at all times. And we need a 5-year target, so companies should capture 98% of methane by 2026. Second, companies need to be held accountable for releasing methane. New permits should be denied for new wells to be drilled if operators are out of compliance with gas capture requirements. Third-party verification should be required for leak repairs that are made through the alarm program. As I think a lot of other speakers have said, even though leaks contribute 70% to oil and gas pollution, the current rule is exempting 95% of wells from regulations on oversight and basic leak detection and repair. And last but not least, operators need to inform the public who are at risk, health risks for methane release, and transparency needs to be improved by improving state reporting and public notice requirements. Please adopt a strong rule to protect our health and our environment. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Govias. Mariana Kai Hollenberg. Nancy Weeks Singham.
I'm here.
Oh, terrific.
Hi, thank you for listening to me today. My name is Nancy Weeks Singham. I'm a former teacher in Albuquerque Public Schools, and I live in Albuquerque. From my work with 350.org and 350 New Mexico, I've learned that constant methane emissions now flowing into the atmosphere from New Mexico are 84 more times potent as contributors to climate change than carbon dioxide. And I've also read recent reports that show that the emissions from methane and other volatile chemicals from Our leaky equipment, venting, flaring have more than doubled in the last 12 months in New Mexico. So clearly, industry self-policing is not working. For the record, I support the OCD's proposed regulations as well as the 5 additional proposals made by the Western Environmental Law Center to close the important loopholes in the proposed regulations. You may know that every US government official document on climate change has stated that New Mexico is one of the states that are the most vulnerable to climate change in the entire country. And my main message to you today is these changes to our climate are happening now. And the massive methane leaks from our state that are contributing to climate change are harming us, especially rural New Mexicans. I know this firsthand because I am also a writer for the educational project called the Land Witness Project. We've interviewed and made videos telling stories of rural New Mexicans, from farmers and ranchers to public land managers, government scientists, recreational businesses such as rafting and skiing. And every one of these rural New Mexicans have shared their stories of how they are already, right now, being harmed by climate change, fueled by our own methane emissions. Ranchers whose cattle operations are suffering from drought, small farmers whose irrigation has been shut off before the end of the growing season, rafting companies whose businesses are crumbling due to low water levels, pecan farmers whose trees are suffering and whose future business is uncertain, National Wildlife Refuge managers who are seeing drastically more fires that are endangering migratory birds, low winter snowpacks and higher springtime temperatures that are causing faster runoff and lower summer water flows. Northern New Mexico businesses hurt by harm to fishing recreation due to low water runoff and higher temperatures. New Mexico, especially rural New Mexico, is suffering now as a result of our own state's methane emissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sam. Liliana Castillo.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Liliana Castillo. I'm the Deputy Director with CAVU. For the past 15 years, we have shared stories to bring people together to create local solutions to the climate crisis. As we have traveled across New Mexico, we've been hearing from impacted communities, experts, and decision makers. Their stories have unveiled that we have work to do when it comes to protecting people who live alongside the oil and gas industry, confirmed by data over and over again, as recently as 3 weeks ago. Their stories deserve not only our attention, but also our action. We applaud Governor Lujan Grisham's administration for recognizing how important and urgent it is to address New Mexico's massive and growing methane emissions problem and continuing to prioritize these rules. These issues have only become more pressing as the federal government removes safeguards for the environment and health, and the COVID-19 crisis continues to impact our neighbors. While the OCD rule has a strong structure, it should be strengthened to meet the governor's goal of nation-leading methane rules and deliver meaningful action for communities impacted directly by oil and gas pollution and climate changes. The rules should ban routine venting and flaring, meet the goal of capturing 98% of methane emissions by 2026, strengthen state reporting and public notice requirements to improve transparency and ensure accountability of operations, deny permits to drill new wells if operators are out of compliance with gas capture requirements. And finally, comprehensive rules to address methane waste and pollution must include a strict New Mexico Environment Department rule, since nearly 70% of oil and gas methane pollution in New Mexico occurs through leaks. NMED's draft rule fails to protect public health and our climate by exempting 95% of wells from regulation across the state, from oversight and necessary leak detection and repair requirements. The Commission should clarify that the agencies must work in parallel to achieve comprehensive rules that cut methane and air pollution meaningfully. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak and all your work and time on this critical issue.
Thank you very much, Ms. Castillo. Let me loop back to Trish Foshi. No? Or Mariana Kai Hollenberg. No. All right. We have no one else in this time slot. The next time slot begins at 2 p.m. I'll read the names there in the order in which I will call them. Teresa Seamster, Beverly Singer, Clyde Williams, June Parsons, and Charmaine Crockett. Is there anything else the commissioners would like to hear about before we adjourn until 2 p.m.? No? All right. Thank you. We'll reconvene at 2. Mr. Baca, if you would please let me know when you're ready. You're muted, Mr. Baca.
Let me see.
Now you're muted.
Yes. Chairwoman, everything's going really good because we're transcribing it as we go. You know, you read a statement at the very beginning, the very first thing you read this morning. Would you email that to me?
Certainly.
You're a doll. Thank you very much, Chairwoman.
Just let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready whenever you are.
All right. This is our second afternoon public comment session in case number 215, a matter before the Oil Conservation Commission to consider proposed rules regulating the venting and flaring of natural gas from oil and natural gas production and gathering facilities. My name is Felicia Orth, the hearing officer appointed by the Commission to accept public comment today and conduct the rest of the hearing as well. This appears to be our final session for today. We have several folks who signed up for the 2 o'clock session. One person who had originally signed up for the 3 o'clock session but will be available now, and one person who had signed up for the 4 o'clock session who has now withdrawn from that time slot. So we ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes. In the event you have more you would like the commission to consider from you than can be said in 2 minutes, please submit that in writing to Florine Davidson. You will find her contact information on the Oil Conservation Division webpage. Mr. Lamkin, would you mute Mr. Baca, please?
Sure thing.
Thank you. In the event there's anyone on the line who might have been signed up for an earlier time slot today and was just able to call in now, that's fine. I will take your comment before we adjourn for the day. Please reach out to our host, Balin Lamkin, using the chat function. Just let him know you're available, and he will let me know that you're available to be called upon. We have all 3 commissioners with us today. You see the chair, Adrian Sandoval, Commissioner Thomas Engler, and Commissioner Jordan Kessler. Also a variety of other staff and council with us today. So I'll call the names in this order: Teresa Seamster, Beverly Singer, Clyde Williams, June Parsons, Charmaine Crockett, and Stephen Robertson. Then I will invite anyone who has not already given comment but was in an earlier time slot to identify themselves if they wish to speak. Let's start with Teresa Seamster. Ms. Seamster?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to you and to the commissioners. My name is Teresa Seamster, and I'm a member of the Counselor Chapter Health Committee located in the Tri-Chapter area of the Navajo Nation. We formed the committee 5 years ago to document local health symptoms, air pollution complaints, public safety concerns, and other issues caused by a sharp increase in well flaring, well explosions, oil and contaminated water leaks, and oil truck and tanker collisions with local vehicles and US 550 traffic on the chapter's northern boundary. Our 2018 health impact assessment recorded resident health symptoms, and we conducted PM 2.5 air monitoring at 8 different chapter sites. We also sampled 4 different sites for 75 different VOCs, hydrogen sulfide, and formaldehyde. Our air pollutant findings were significantly worse in several areas than those of thousands of monitored sites in oil patch communities in Pennsylvania, Wyoming, California, New York, and Ohio that submit their data to the National Environmental Health Project website. One example was elevated levels of formaldehyde, which is a potent carcinogen that researchers use as an indicator near well sites that other toxic chemicals are likely present. This gas was detected at all 4 sites, well above the U.S. EPA threshold for mitigation, which is 0.003 parts per million. Our sampling ranges were from 0.007 to 0.097 parts per million. Dangerous spikes in formaldehyde exposure are completely missed by state and federal air quality monitoring because it doesn't last long in the atmosphere. And that takes us to the issue of trying to control the mixture of chemicals that people are being exposed to that are not revealed in collected statistics. The Physicians for Social Responsibility publishes an annual compendium of scientific, medical, and media findings that demonstrate risks and harms of fracking. These are published findings, and they catalog thousands of specific studies, clinical reports, and reported incidences of harm directly caused by fracking operations. The PSR calls this the greatest uncontrolled health experiment ever seen in outdoor industrial pollution on the American public. This takes us to the unregulated methane emissions, which is a potent indicator of rural air pollution. Even though production in New Mexico has steeply lowered, greenhouse gas emissions, especially methane, is rapidly expanding. Even with no regulation of emissions due to extreme over-extraction and extremely high cost of fracking, the shale oil industry has never really returned a profit. According to a study by the international accounting firm Deloitte, the U.S. shale industry has lost $300 billion over the last 15 years.
Ms. Seamster, would you wrap up, please?
I certainly will. The economic harm, I'm just going to skip to the bottom here, the economic harm of the shale industry and the unregulated methane has already caused significant economic harm and long-term harm to residents' health in the San Juan Basin. Effective methane regulation is a decade overdue. There's a health price tag connected to it. On the Navajo Nation, adult and childhood asthma has doubled, and respiratory illness is a leading cause of death in the rural eastern Navajo Nation. And still, the rampant spread of COVID in Navajo communities has exposed the real cost of ignoring the largely hidden and unmonitored sources of methane. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Seamster. Beverly Singer. Dr. Singer?
She was here a minute ago, but it looks like she dropped off.
All right. I will hope that she comes back and we'll call her name again later. Dr. Clyde Williams.
Hello? Hello?
Hello. Please go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Clyde Thomas Williams, Clyde T. Williams. I live in Los Angeles, and via WebEx, I am participating because that is the Community Coalition for a Safe Community, is dealing with the oil and gas field known as the Inglewood oil field. But we also participated in the Alicio Canyon gas venting problems that we had here in 2015 through 2017. And we are also doing oil and gas regulations for the Inglewood oil field, the city of LA, the county of LA, and for California geological energy management. We're quite concerned regarding the basic elements of methane. That is, we support Grissom's call for real leading methane rules, and we would like to propose, and we will be submitting written comments also, but summarizing it down to capture all of the routine venting and eliminate flaring from all wells, because the biggest well venting was at the Alicio Canyon at well SS25. And it had been installed before 1979. And from 1979 to date, every annual review of it falsified the records, because in 1979 they took out a subsurface shutoff valve and it went through the casings and escaped and eventually blew out in 2015. However, all annual reports for the well had indicated that the SSSB was there and was controlling, but the gas company said, oh, we took it out in 1979, but all of their records show it present. So if you can't trust the largest gas operator to have good records, the real problem will be either all or nothing, and it's always easier to control that rather than 95%, 92%, 99%. So we'd highly recommend full enclosure during operations, full 100% cementing of all casing annually. And my background goes back to my first well was in 1958 in eastern Kansas. I've been around the oil and gas industry, and I know what they do and why they do it, and I'm quite concerned these days about LLCs, LLPs, and the problem of who's at fault if everyone declares bankruptcy. Whoever owns...
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
You're welcome. I will be submitting by email also. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Dr. Singer has rejoined us. Dr. Singer, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, quite clearly. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to make my comment. I thought about what I would say today, and I had written some things down, and then I was listening this morning to all the comments that were made, and particularly the woman who was a beekeeper, and I just thought, it is amazing that we are at this point in our history in the state of New Mexico, and I'm from Santa Clara Pueblo, and I have relatives out at Shiprock area, and when I travel out there these days, it doesn't have the same energy or the same. The landscape has completely been modified and altered and desecrated from my perspective as a indigenous woman. But, as a scholar, and I worked in anthropology for the last, I don't know how many years, I don't know, 40 years. And I have been a participant in looking at environmental issues for years, all the way back to 1990 when I was on the Sierra Club's Native American Sites Committee. And in 1990, and we were looking at the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And we come back all these years now and we see what's happened there. The development has completely just gone out of control. And so I think we've reached an apex here in New Mexico with regard to oil and gas development. When I say that, I'm saying that, I know we're considering other renewable energy opportunities and developing those. But for what we're dealing with now in terms of the pollution and the toxicity that has been already emitted out, certainly in the Four Corners area, it is without a doubt time for looking at this in an integrated way, because we can't separate out also the education of our young people, in public and elementary, junior high school students who really don't have probably very little clue as to how dependent we have become on oil and gas. And I'd like to see the commission put out some kind of public information statement about where we are with regard to oil and gas development. I mean, where does it stand? I don't think, people just don't have the access to this kind of information, unless you are a representative from that area or you actually live there and you see, the devastation. And I'll just raise the question also. I mean, this last year, when we were past years, we've been able to witness what it's like to not be able to see the sky when we had all those fires burning out in Colorado and California, and our own fires here. And we lost our entire forest here at Santa Clara Pueblo. Watershed is nearly dead. And so the cost to not only the environment and the people, but, just to the fact that, I think we've come to a point now where I'd like to see the consequences be addressed of where we're at and move forward with putting out some kind of information to everyone, especially to the students and young people, to recognize and be involved in planning, their future, because that's what we're talking about. I had an amazing childhood, but I worry about the future. And one last thing I wanted to do is I was researching this, and I said, the U.S. is in such a strange company these days, because we are among the highest methane and flaring expulsion producers alongside Iran, Venezuela, and Nigeria. I mean, this does not fare well, that we are among that company of countries. We can do better. And I'd like to see New Mexico do better. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singer. Let's move then to June Parsons. June Parsons.
Yes, thank you. My name is June Parsons. I'm from Rio Rancho, Sandoval County, New Mexico. Honorable Oil Conservation Commissioners and attendees, thank you for this opportunity to comment. I continue to be very concerned about the ongoing harmful impacts on our people in frontline communities, as well as the global health dangers of viral releases from permafrost melt into the air we breathe, caused in large part by leaking, venting, and flaring of methane and other VOCs that are accelerating our climate crisis. Therefore, I offer my public comment and hopes you will immediately take the following actions. Number one, codify and enforce OCC's proposed inclusion of a 90% gas capture requirement by 2026 for all sized wells, beginning in the second quarter of 2022, after a baseline is set in the first quarter of 2022, with accurate data from 2021. Number two, incorporate OCC rules that ensure stronger public notice provisions that if and when any release of oil and gas facilities present any risk to the public, our property, and our environment, methane reductions are financially feasible per the findings of the International Energy Agency that 1/3 of global methane emissions could be cut at no net cost. Our land, our air, and our water are vital, shared public resources upon which all of our lives and our health depend. Commissioners, I implore you to be present and visionary and do the right things by taking responsible actions now for safeguarding our environment, cleaning our air, preserving our fresh water, and making the health of all of us your priority. I respectfully thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Parsons. Charmaine Crockett. Charmaine Crockett. No. Stephen Robertson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Sandoval and Commissioners. My name is Stephen Robertson. I'm the Executive Vice President for the Permian Basin Petroleum Association. I appreciate the opportunity to provide you with comment from our members regarding the final draft rule to regulate venting and flaring of natural gas. While PBPA is greatly supportive of improvements to the regulatory framework for oil and gas operations in New Mexico, as presented, the final proposed rules contain multiple concerning aspects, many of which are carried forward from previous drafts of the rule and were commented on previously by PBPA, but several others are new as to this final proposed version. PBPA is engaged with the Oil Conservation Division throughout the drafting process on these rules. We previously submitted written comments on September 16, 2020, outlining our suggested edits and concerns. We will continue to engage with the Division and Commission in hopes of rules being developed with the goal of reducing emissions, not putting the oil and gas industry in New Mexico out of business. Specifically, as to the final proposed rule, we want to highlight the following concerns. Even though reporting categories have been reduced from the previous draft of the rule to this proposed final rule, they are still too onerous, will lead to inaccuracies, and do not prevent waste. As stated in our previous comments, accounting software is not designed for so many additional categories, and, if required, upgrades will require 18 to 24 months. Further, PBPA believes reporting vented and flared volumes on Form C-115 provides the most accurate information on volumes of wasted natural gas. Definitions for emergency and malfunction, which received no change from the previous draft, are overly broad and are likely to result in conflict. We still recommend the definitions for emergency and malfunction which we offered in our previous comments. Language taking into consideration the differing circumstances for low-producing wells when compared to other operations has not been sufficiently provided for in this final rule. The expense and complication of requiring written notice be sent out to royalty owners is likely to result more in the cancellation of operations than in any reduction in venting or flaring while operations are maintained. The authorized third-party certifications, verifications now included in the proposed final rule will not accomplish a reduction in venting or flaring, but will only increase the cost of operations and burden on the regulated community. We have full confidence in the agency's ability to certify reported data. We do not have such confidence in the creation of a cottage industry to do the same. If this is such a priority, we recommend the division ask the legislature for money to fund agency personnel to do this job. And it still appears with the final rule that the COVID-19 pandemic and the rule's impact on the state's economy have not been taken into consideration in the drafting. Thank you for your time and listening to these comments, and we look forward to continuing to working with the OCD and the OCC to develop these rules.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Let me call another time for Charmaine Crockett. Right now I have just one person who identified himself as having been scheduled in a prior time slot and can give his comment now. Jim McKenzie. Jim McKenzie?
Yes, I'm here. And thank you. My name is Jim McKenzie. I'm a member of 350 New Mexico, a chapter of the international organization 350.org. Greetings. Good afternoon to the commissioners, the hearing officer, and the staff. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. Strong methane waste regulations are of broad public interest, as the many public commenters have demonstrated today and will continue to demonstrate through the week, I'm assured. Oil and gas in New Mexico on both federal and state lands belongs to all citizens. The rules under discussion today will govern the development of these resources. The industry reminds us consistently how much they pay for the development and severance rights of these resources, and how grateful we should be for those revenues. The industry often glosses over their enormous expenses that they are able to externalize and land up on the public's plate. These regulations under discussion must hold the oil and gas industry accountable for the many and varied expenses they cause the public. And that is economic expenses as well as health and climate expenses. Many commentators have outlined the numerous costs of methane pollution. Make no mistake, our methane waste has large impacts locally, regionally, and globally. Methane emissions from the oil and gas industry in the US is responsible for an estimated 25% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the United States, the country with one of the very highest greenhouse emissions on the entire planet. The Permian Basin is perhaps the largest play in the world right now. New Mexico is the U.S. third largest oil and gas producer in the U.S. The argument that some that what we do on our methane waste just doesn't matter clearly don't understand the magnitude of the problem that we are addressing here today. What the OCC does with the methane regulations in this case has enormous impacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKenzie. So we have reached the end of the list of folks who signed up through Florine Davidson to offer public comment today. Again, I would be happy to accept your public comment in the event you or your friend was unable to sign in today and can sign in on any subsequent day of this hearing between now and January 15th. Also know that we did have an email question about the deadline for submitting written public comment. Please submit that comment by 5 p.m. on January 8th. That comment goes to Florine Davidson. All records in the matter, including her contact information, are on the Oil Conservation Division Outreach and Public Engagement page. If there is nothing further, we will adjourn until 8:30 tomorrow morning and reconvene at that time. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.